Most US small towns were established well before the creation of the interstate system. Therefore, they are usually not found right next to freeways or interstates. In most cases, they would be built next to a railroad, where later a small highway would be built that followed the rail, which allowed access to and from the interstate. Usually, the small towns will have access to three things: a water source like a lake or a river, a railroad, and a state highway going in and out of the town. The first thing that I like to do when building a small town is to start at the core, the main street. The main street is the heart and soul of this entire town, and everything that we're going to do from here on out is building out from around this one particular road. For this instance, we're going to use Big Urban Road's 6-lane road. Now, I know what you're thinking, 6 lanes is way too much for a small town like this. But we're only going to use 2 of the lanes for driving, the other 2 are going to be used for parking. Now, we're not going to put the road directly adjacent to the railroad track. The location of Main Street can be arbitrary, because from it, we're going to grow the city. It'll help the roads from being a perfect grid. It'll help them grow out naturally and organically, which in turn will give your town a unique look. We now have to turn this 6-lane city road into a small town main street with angled parking. We're going to start by using the road markings tool to cover up the outside dash lines. By creating a solid line going over to the dash lines, you're able to cover them up, and then you can just change the color of the line to match the color of the road. By default, the opacity is going to be on, so you have to turn the opacity all the way off so that you don't see the line sticking through. From here, all you have to do is just copy that line and then paste it on every other segment with the outer 2 lines on the main street. Alright, now that the dash lines are gone, we have to make sure that no one's going to be driving in those lanes. So using TMPE, we're going to turn the lanes off and ban all traffic from driving on them. You can go ahead and apply the vehicle restrictions for the entire road. Next, we're going to go ahead and put in the parking spots. We're going to use this street parking 4x2. It's an angled parking spot that packs a huge level of detail. And don't worry, I'm going to list all the mods and assets that I use for this build down into the description. So if you want to go and make it yourself, you're able to use the same exact mods and assets that I did. So basically all you're going to do is lay down the parking spots adjacent to the road. They should snap, so the angle should be perfect. Using Move It, you're going to drag them straight onto the road right where the 2 lanes were that you took out. Don't forget to place on the end caps with the dashed lines, and then just copy and paste it to the other side. One thing that I should remind you if you are going to do this, make sure that they are angled in the direction of the flow of traffic. Since this is right-hand drive, they're angled back so as traffic drives, they're able to pull right into the spot. Using No Controller, we're going to make a few crosswalks, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Clicking on the node where you want your crosswalk to be, change it from middle to crossing. Then with intersection marking tool, go ahead and make the crosswalk. The problem here is that it's now on top of parking spots. So with Move It, you're going to have to move and adjust the parking spots so that they fit perfectly against the crosswalk. You're going to have to use those end caps again that you used on the ends of the roads and place them adjacent to the crosswalk. Now all that's left is to slide over the other parking spots, then do the other side of the crosswalk. And then you can just add any other crosswalks that you want by repeating the same exact process. And this is my final product. I decided that the original road that I put down was just a little too long for the size of the town that I'm going for. I did leave a little bit of space at the end of each side of the road, just so that there could be a node there where I can have a road that turns off or continues on. Alright, so now it's time to start laying down some buildings. I went with several that I just chose from the workshop that would match kind of the theme that I'm going for here in this build. But every little town is different, so I would just recommend going on the workshop and filtering for low density commercial and just scrolling through trying to find exactly what you're looking for. Now, if you don't have a lot of RAM on your computer and you can't hold a ton of assets, there's absolutely no problem with just using the same exact buildings on one side of the road and putting them on the other. Unless you're hyper fixated on it, you honestly won't even tell, and the outcome is still going to look great. Now using move it, we're going to move our buildings back a little bit so we can use all this sidewalk space to detail. Off to the side of my buildings, I'm going to use the prop line tool to lay these in-ground tree planters down onto the ground. The distance between them doesn't really matter, it's personal preference. Then using the same distance, I'm going to choose a tree that matches the main street, and then line them up on top of those planters. They're not going to be perfect at first, but that's okay, we're going to come back and fix it. By selecting the props and the trees, I'm going to use move it and drag them onto the sidewalk. And then copy and paste them to the other side of the road. Rather than fight with move it on trying to get the tree perfectly centered on the planter, it's so much easier to just move the planter decal underneath the tree. Yes, the spacing is going to be off a little bit, however, it's not going to be enough to actually tell. Now, since this is an autumn setting, we're going to use these fallen leaf decals and place them all up and down the road. And just when we thought that we were done detailing, we're going to use more decals to detail the road. You have to remember, this is a small town, so they don't really have the budget to keep the roads always maintained. Therefore, there's often going to be cracks and potholes in the road. Decals typically add that next level of detail and realism into your cities. If you have made it this far, I really appreciate it. This is going to be the first episode of maybe 3 or 4 episodes within a mini-series. Welcome to the town of Autumndale. Autumndale is a fictional town set in Appalachia Valley. Summer just ended here in Appalachia Valley, and fall festivals are right around the corner, like pumpkin picking and corn mazes. My goal of this series mostly is to push my limits as a Cities Skylines creator. See, I've never actually built a city based on a different season other than summer. And quite frankly, I'm tired of summer and ready for the leaves to start to change, which inspired this build. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more, I would appreciate you dropping a like and even consider subscribing. I can't wait to release the next few episodes and show you what this little town can become. Thank you all again for watching, and just remember, if you can dream it, you can build it.